Hello and welcome to Iowa Primetime Live. I am your host, Zach Heine. You are watching Iowa at the voice of college football. And folks, we have an Iowa victory to talk about, but so much more than just a victory on the field over UMass to discuss on the show tonight. Kirk Ferentz makes history. The passing game shows signs of life, and Big Ten play awaits on Friday for Iowa this week. Lots to break down, lots to talk about. But before I get into that, make sure that you're following everyone involved here. You can follow me on X at Zach_Heine. You can follow my written work at Hawkeyes Wire and check that out for your daily dose of Iowa Hawkeyes athletic coverage. And of course, make sure you're following the voice of college football at the VOCFB on X. But folks, we have a lot to talk about tonight. An Iowa victory 47-7 over the UMass Minutemen. And I mean, just a UMass team that was completely outmatched from the opening, jump. It was, Iowa came out from the start and really did whatever they wanted to do to UMass. But in the process, and we'll talk about the game on the field in a little bit. But Kirk Ferentz did officially break the Big Ten all-time wins record. 206 wins for Kirk Ferentz in his Iowa tenure. And just what an incredible accomplishment. And I know that I've been quick to criticize Kirk Ferentz. Look at my shows last week, talking about the future of the program. And, I've had my qualms with Kirk Ferentz when it comes to, not opening up the offense and, hurting the recruiting for quarterbacks and wide receivers and things like that. But you can't deny what Kirk Ferentz has meant to this program at all. This was an Iowa football program that was really bad when Kirk Ferentz took over. Like, people don't remember this, but Kirk Ferentz took over in 1999. Iowa the year before that was 3-8. Then they were 7-5, 9-3, 8-4, 5-5, 6-6, 5-7. You have to go all the way back to 1991 when Iowa won 10 games, and then they tied in the Holiday Bowl. Like, Iowa was a program kind of on the downswing. It was the end of the Hayden Fry era. Hayden Fry, of course, legendary head coach at Iowa. I mean, amazing things with the program. But, it was a program that was kind of searching for a new identity. Hayden Fry was, on the out. He was getting older, and, Iowa needed to go in a different direction. And they hired Kirk Ferentz, the old offensive line coach, to head coach trajectory. And it's worked wonders. It's worked absolute wonders for Kirk Ferentz. After he went a combined 4-19 in his first 2 years at Iowa, really struggling. But, the program had patience with Kirk Ferentz. They had patience with the vision that he was building. And you saw things really start to break his way. They went 3-9 in 2000, and then they were up at 7-5 in 2001 with an Alamo Bowl win, and then they broke through officially in 2002. The Brad Banks year, they won 11 games, lost a bowl game that year, but Iowa really turned a corner. And then since then, it's been over 20 years of pretty consistent winning. You take out if you take out a stretch, 2006 and 2007 wasn't great, and then 2012. Was pretty bad as well. But if you take out those an anomaly of years, Iowa's been one of the most consistent, winning programs in the Big Ten under Kirk Ferentz. And just think about the moments that you've gotten to see in Ferentz's tenure. Drew Tate to Warren Holloway to beat LSU in the Capital One Bowl, and an LSU team that was coached by Nick Saban and had just won a national championship the year prior. That was a big win for the program. 2008, beating Penn State, the number 2 team in the country at the time, on that last-second field goal from Daniel Murray. And that win sparked a run of 13 wins in a row for Iowa to end the 2008 season and into 2009, where they began 9-0 before losing to Northwestern with the Ricky Stange injury. A great run of dominance for Iowa in 2008 and 2009. And even into 2010 as well, the last year with Stange. And then really, after a couple okay years, 2011, 2013, 2014, we're fine. But then you come out and you go 12-0 in 2015. You're a few inches away, a play away from winning a Big Ten championship and making the college football playoff. And obviously things didn't bounce your way in that game. But then since then, in 2015, you won 12 games. But then in the years since, you've won 8, 9, 10, 6 games in a COVID shortened season, 10, 8, 10, 8, and obviously 2 wins so far this season. So take out the COVID shortened season, Iowa hasn't won less than 8 games in 10 years. And that might change this year. We'll see with a tough schedule and with the issues that Iowa has, but that's really consistent right there. And I know we have higher expectations and higher hopes, and I feel the same way. Like, I think this program can be even better than where it's at, and I think that they'll get there. But you have to give Kirk Ferentz credit for keeping it stable. I mean, 8 wins is nothing to scoff about. It's really not. I know it gets choked around a lot, but for a program like Iowa, 8 wins is great. And there's a lot of programs that would really kill for that. Like, Nebraska is a program that's been so up and down over the last 10 years. Minnesota, I'm sure, would kill for 8 wins a year consistently. I mean, there's so many programs that, wish that they could have had that consistency that Iowa's had in the last 10 years under Kirk Ferentz. And yes, I think it's totally fair to expect more, to expect better, and want the program to take the next step, especially within the NIL era. But I think you have to give a lot of love and respect to what Kirk Ferentz has meant to this program and what he has meant to the overall consistency of the Iowa football team. And you can really tell what he means, by looking at his players after the game. Every single player waited for Kirk Ferentz to complete his post-game interview with Anthony Herron, former Hawkeye, who was on the call for Big Ten Network. And they all swarmed off together, and you saw Kirk Ferentz talking to Lisa Bluter, and you saw him talking to his family. And then you got all the messages from former players online. I mean, I saw tens of hundreds of players putting out messages. Cooper DeJean, Tristan Wirfs, CJ Beathard, everyone from all the different eras of Iowa football out there sending messages out to Kirk Ferentz. Brad Banks put a message out. It's just really, it's easy to see why Kirk Ferentz is so beloved by his former players, by other coaches in the Iowa athletics department. Like, he's just been a consistent force at Iowa, and love him or hate him, like, you can't deny that he's been very consistent. And I always had a lot of really fun memories with him as head coach. And here was Kirk Ferentz after the game talking about passing Woody Hayes on the all-time wins board and just everything that it's meant to him to be a part of the program for the last 25 years and to ultimately break the record.
Really thrilled and can't believe it, quite frankly. My name's next to that distinction, but just want to start out by saying I think it's a real testament to the university and to the program here. I can't help but go back to when I got here in 1981. Nobody would have ever dreamt any of this stuff was possible. I mean, we hadn't had a winning season in 19 years at that point. So you think about how far the program's come, Coach Fry's leadership and what he did to improve the program and position things. And so, an awful lot of things have to go into to have success. And certainly, takes a lot of people. This is not like a small, there's no team sport like football. There's so many people involved. And I've been so fortunate to work with so many outstanding coaches through the years. Think about the group that I joined in the 80s, just really special people. Coach Fry is the only person who would even looked at me at that point, and I'll never forget that, and I'm appreciative of that fact. And you think about a guy like Phil Parker, not to single people out, but I'll single a couple out tonight, and think about Phil being here this entire time, and just the great job he's done, the growth he's shown as was always a great secondary coach. He's become a tremendous coordinator, support staff. It's so critical in our sport, again, because of the numbers. And when I got here, and I think Rita started working when she was maybe 12 or 8, I can't remember, but she's been here for 3 head coaches. You can do the math on that one. And I've never seen her have a bad day at work. And I bring that up in that, I think it makes Iowa special. There's a lot of those cases across our campus. And for them, it's not just a job. They're part of the team. They hurt when we lose and enjoy it when we win. So we've been fortunate for great support staff. And then, Beth mentioned over 1,000 players. I certainly haven't counted, but there's been a lot of players through here. And then you pile on 9 years when I was here in the 80s. And the common denominator is they've just been great people to work with. Had a lot of good players, really good players, but they're great people to work with, and they do it for the right reasons. And it's just been fun to watch them, play in the program and then see them become adults. And whether you go back to the 80s or guys here the last 27 years, guys in the locker room, Dallas in there, Torian Young being back here as an honorary captain, that's really what makes it special. So happy, just want to pay tribute to all those players that have made this possible. Our fans have been great. I'm appreciative of that.
And that was Kirk Ferentz after the game talking about what it meant to pass Woody Hayes and what it meant to do it at Iowa, a place that he was an offensive line coach at when Hayden Fry hired him in the early 80s, and then coming back after a few coaching stints elsewhere to become the head coach, and everything that he did and has done in the 27 years since he joined the program. But how did he do it on the field? How did Iowa get the job done for Kirk Ferentz to break that record? They beat UMass 47-7. Not shocking at all that Iowa took care of business against the Minutemen. UMass has been just completely abysmal this year. 0-3 now. They lost to an FCS school the week before playing Iowa. Their defense is just not very good. The offense, didn't do a whole lot. Let's break it down though, unit by unit. We'll start with the offense because everyone wants to talk about the offense. Iowa did some really good stuff on offense in this game. Obviously, the 47 points is great to see, but 435 total yards of offense for Iowa, with 234 of that coming through the air and 201 yards on the ground. They averaged 5 yards per carry. It was a very balanced attack for Iowa on the ground. Nathan McNeil, the true freshman that was really exciting people in camp, had a great game, and it was kind of garbage time, but 10 carries for 56 yards for Nathan McNeil. Also had a 32-yard reception on a screen. Really good to see McNeil kind of impressing, especially with Kamari Moulton still hurt, although Moulton should be back here pretty soon. McNeil looks like a really interesting piece for the future, though. Maybe not this season. And Iowa's room is very young, which could prevent that. Xavier Williams is a freshman. Moulton is a sophomore. Patterson is a junior. Washington is a sophomore. They're all going to be back next year, barring a transfer. So we'll see what happens with that. Nathan McNeil looked very impressive. Jazz Patterson, once again, 10 carries for 54 yards, a 5.4 yards average per carry. Once again, Jazz Patterson really impressing. He needs more. He needs more carries. And I know that he tied for the team lead in carries against UMass, but going into Big Ten play, Jazz Patterson should be getting a lot of carries, especially with Moulton still out hurt. Xavier Williams, 8 carries for 38 yards. Caden Weechin, 1 carry for 20 yards, and that touchdown on the end around, slowing off the speed. We'll talk about Caden Weechin a little bit later as well, because he had an impressive night after some struggles up in Ames last weekend. And then Terrell Washington, 3 carries for 18 yards. Mark Gronowski, 6 carries for 12 yards and a touchdown. And Brevin Dole, 2 carries for 3 yards to kind of round out Iowa's rushing game. They did the job. It was a very quiet, it wasn't flashy at all. There weren't big 40-yard runs or or anything like that, but it was a very consistent 201 yards on the ground, averaging 5 yards a carry. Iowa's offensive line moving bodies, getting people out of the way, and the running backs taking advantage. It's what you wanted to see. Nothing too crazy, nothing too special. Iowa took care of business on the running game. Well, speaking of the running game, we have James in the chat here saying, I think one will transfer. It wouldn't surprise me. They have it's a really deep room, and all these guys could be back next year. There's no seniors in the room, so it wouldn't surprise me if one transfers. And we'll kind of see how it plays out this year. And I was not going to be able to rotate 4 guys in Big Ten play. You can do it against Albany and against UMass, and to a lesser extent against Iowa State. But once you get into Big Ten play, especially Indiana and Penn State and Oregon, you need to have your 2, maybe 3 guys that are getting all the carries. And so it'll be Moulton when he comes back, most likely, and then 1 or 2 of Patterson, Williams, and Washington. Right now, I would go with Williams and Patterson to be those guys because they've really impressed. Troy Washington has not done too much in the running game quite yet, but maybe he breaks out against Rutgers. He's still listed as a starter in that game against the Scarlet Knights on Friday night. So we'll see what happens there, but I think that they should get the nod. And James agrees Jazz needs to start, I feel. Yep, Jazz Patterson has been really impressive this year. So I think that he'd be the guy that I would pick as well. But obviously we know Iowa's rushing game can do that. They did it against Albany. How was Iowa's passing game? Did they improve? And the quick answer is yes, they did. Mark Gronowski, 16 of 24 for 179 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks for Mark Gronowski. Hank Brown even got involved there late too, went 5 of 7 for 55 yards and a touchdown, his first Iowa touchdown. So it's good to see Hank Brown getting involved and making some plays late in that one to help cover up that garbage time there at the end. But Mark Gronowski, he looked a lot better. And Iowa came out early and often looking to throw the ball vertically. It's the second play of the game. They go play action, and Mark Gronowski airs one out deep to Sam Phillips for a 45-yard gain, longest Iowa pass play of the season. Now, on the second play of the game, and on the very next play from the UMass 20-yard line, they run a quick slant, and Gronowski puts it on the money to Seth Anderson for a touchdown. 3 plays, 68 yards, and a touchdown through the air. Iowa came out looking to be aggressive passing the ball, and I didn't expect that. I'll give them credit. I'll give Kirk Ferentz and Tim Lester a lot of credit for that. I kind of expected a vanilla game plan, go run the ball, 50, 60 times on the ground and just, run for 300 yards and get the win and go on to Rutgers. But no, they came out trying to get the passing game going. And I really like to see that from Iowa. That was a great sign. And Mark Gronowski looked good. And then he led another drive, hit Seth Anderson for another score, 2 touchdowns for Seth Anderson. That's a guy who we heard a lot about in the offseason, heard a lot of hype and a lot of, excitement around Seth Anderson. We didn't see that in the first 2 games. Looked very good against the UMass. And obviously, I'm going to say this once. I'm just going to say it right now because it's going to encompass all talk about this game. It is UMass. It's UMass. It's one of the worst FBS programs in the entire country. They're abysmal, absolutely abysmal. So before people begin chiming in and saying, "Well, it's UMass, it's a MAC team," all this stuff. Yes, I know, but let me have a win. Let me please have a win as an Iowa fan, please. The passing game looked good. I don't care who the opponent is. Please, just let me sulk and be excited about an explosive passing game for the first time in a while. But receiving wise, Sam Phillips, 3 catches for 75 yards. Obviously, that 45-yard reception really inflating that total, but it was good to see him get used vertically. He's just a guy with a ton of speed that Iowa just hasn't been using very much. this season. So hopefully, they get him more involved as the season goes on. Nathan McNeil, 1 for 32, was your next leading receiver. Seth Anderson, 3 catches for 26 yards and those 2 touchdowns. Xavier Williams, 2 catches for 23 yards. Jacob Gill, 1 catch for 15 yards. Ortworth, 1 for 13. KJ Parker, 2 for 12 and a touchdown. He caught that touchdown from Hank Brown, the redshirt freshman. KJ Parker, good to see him getting involved. 2 catches for 11 yards for Dayton Howard. 1 catch for 8 yards for DJ Vanami. 2 for 7 for Jazz Patterson. 1 for 6 for Washington Jr. and then 2 for 6 for the tight end Hayden Large. But again, it was an improvement for Iowa. It's been steadily getting better and better and better as the games have gone on. Still work to be done with the passing game, as James says in the chat right here. KJ and Vanami had some really bad drops. Yeah, drops were an issue once again for Iowa. Parker had one down the sidelines that it was a good throw from Gronowski and it was dropped. It's got to get figured out with those drops. This offense is not good or explosive enough yet through the air to consistently overcome a 2nd and 10, a 3rd and 8 because you drop a pass. Iowa's just not good enough to consistently overcome those down and distance deficits. And when you drop passes, you put yourself behind the sticks. And it just can't happen. It has to get cleaned up. It's been a problem all season long. And heading into Big Ten play, the drops need to be figured out immediately. That needs to be the thing that gets cleaned up for this passing game to take the next step. Because I think that's where the question should go from here. What's next for the Iowa passing game? It's great that you're able to do it against UMass at home. Would have had really big concerns if they didn't do that against UMass. But you did enough to show that, you can, exploit opposing defenses through the air. But can you do it consistently, and can you do it against better competition? We're going to find out. Rutgers' defense is by no means elite, but it is a Big Ten defense, so it'll be a good test to see how this passing game looks and goes from there. Going on the road, obviously they played at Iowa State a few weeks ago, but a Big Ten road environment. It's a Friday night, so it should be pretty busy over there at Rutgers. I think the last Friday night game that Iowa played that wasn't against Nebraska was that Maryland game, I think in 2021, where they went on the road and I think they beat Maryland 55-20 or something like that. Iowa's offense looked really good in that game. Not expecting that, obviously, this Friday, but you never know. You never know with those Friday night games. They're kind of weird. They're kind of wacky. And we'll talk more about Rutgers a bit later. And then on Thursday's show, where Josh will return to join me. But yeah, I think overall thoughts on the offense is that the passing game really, really showed some improvement, and it needs to keep getting better. You got to eliminate the drops. Can we see a few more shots? Some more play action, things like that. But this was a really good step in the right direction for the passing game, and I think that is something that you can take with you on the road, and you feel a bit better about that. If you're Kirk Ferentz, if you're Tim Lester, about being more aggressive with them at Rutgers. So overall, Iowa's offense, I think, played really well. Granted, it's UMass. They're going to be playing a lot better defenses as the season goes on. And James says, it was Maryland. Yep, it was Maryland. Want to make sure I got that right. Our man T. Hink in the chat asked about my thoughts on the passing game. It's a big improvement, and I think if it continues to get better, it's a great start. I think if this is the pinnacle of the Iowa passing game this year, it's a disappointment. But if this is a good, if this is the first stepping stone in improved performances for the passing game, I think that it's a really good step there. Do you think we played Rutgers a couple years ago? The Cooper DeJean pick six. Yes, I do remember that. I do remember that play. Iowa's 4-0 against Rutgers in the history of the programs. None of the games have really been all that close. Iowa's really taking care of business, whether it's at home or on the road against Rutgers. But I think this will probably be the closest game that they do play. Just with Rutgers, they have an offense that's doing some good stuff, and their offense is really going to challenge Iowa's defense in ways that only the Iowa State offense has done this year. But Iowa's defense handled that one pretty well. Let's talk about the Iowa defense from the UMass victory. Completely stifling Iowa defense in this one. I mean, UMass only ended up with 119 total yards of offense in this game. They were 0 of 10 on third down, 0 of 2 on fourth down. That's unbelievable. UMass 0 of 12 on third and fourth downs combined. Iowa's defense really won those money downs the entire night. The only touchdown that UMass got came off of a blocked punt, which I'll talk about the special teams in a little bit. And it was a short field. UMass began, I think, at the Iowa 20-yard line or something like that. And they scored. Outside of that, they didn't move the ball past midfield. I don't think. It was really a dominating performance for that Iowa defense. We saw some sacks, which is what I wanted. Which is what I really wanted. I wanted to see. Iowa had 5 sacks in total. Max Llewellyn with 2 of them. He's up to 2. He's up to 3 sacks on the year already. Jaden Harrell, Zach Lutmer, and Ethan Herkett each chipping in a sack of their own in the game. 11 TFLs for Iowa, 2.5 for Llewellyn, 1.5 for Aaron Graves, 1.5 for Carson Shire. Really getting involved there. You'll love to see that. Jaden Harrell with 6 total tackles to lead the way. Iowa's defense, completely dominated. UMass rushed 27 rushing attempts for 26 yards. And it counts the sacks that Iowa got, but 1 yard a carry for UMass. Iowa's defense really did the job there. But there are some things to be concerned about with this defense, and T. Hink really just got to what I was about to go into. Zach, is it concerning Iowa hasn't had any turnovers 3 games in? I think it is a little bit concerning. This is a unit that really prides itself on creating turnovers and creating splash plays, and so far Iowa's forced just 1 turnover in 3 games. It was the muffed punt at Iowa State that they got the recovery on, and that's it. That is something that needs to be a little bit better this season. Iowa, and they're going to get turnovers. No defense goes an entire season without forcing a turnover. It's going to happen. If I had to guess, it'll happen on Friday night. Iowa's been close. A couple tipped balls haven't gone their way, but it is a bit concerning as James mentions that you haven't gotten a pick or a fumble against UMass and Albany this year. Those are teams that you really should have forced a turnover against, and you haven't done it yet. A bit concerning. I think it'll come around. This defense is playing so well that I'd be shocked if it doesn't come around. But it hasn't happened yet, and so until we see it, gonna have to wait to believe it. But I think with the pedigree of this Iowa defense and what we've seen them do in the past, that the turnovers are going to come in bunches here pretty soon, if I had to guess. And then we get to Iowa's special teams unit, the most Jekyll and Hyde unit of the night for Iowa, because we saw some extremely high highs with Drew Stevens' 54-yard field goal. That was absolutely money. And obviously Caden Weechin with that 95-yard punt return touchdown. An incredible return from Caden Weechin. Just showing off every reason why he's one of the best return men in the entire country with that, being able to get to the edge, follow his blockers, and then turn on the Jets to take it to the house. He won the Special Teams Player of the Week award in the Big Ten for that performance. He was great. But then some mind-boggling lows for the special teams unit. Drew Stevens missed an extra point. He missed a 38-yard field goal. And then the blocked punt is honestly what I'm the most concerned about, because just a completely blown assignment. A UMass rusher comes completely free up the middle. Like, Reese Dakin never had a chance on that punt. Like, by the time it left his foot, the UMass defender was already in the air right in front of him. Like, that one, he had no chance to get that punt off. Complete botch by the Iowa special teams. And it's really scary when you think about what Rutgers special teams was able to do on Saturday. They had 2 blocked punt touchdowns in the first quarter. And granted, they were playing a much inferior opponent, but that's a unit where if you're Rutgers and you're looking for the advantage, that might be where you have it there. Iowa special teams have been up and down really all season long. T. Hink says they're a disaster. Yeah, it's been kind of up and down. We saw Caden Wheaton not play great against Iowa State and then have a fantastic game against UMass. Drew Stevens has been pretty consistent for the most part, but the missed extra point is concerning, and a missed 38-yard field goal is as well, although it was very close. It was a very close miss. But yeah, overall, Iowa special teams, very inconsistent so far this season, which is weird for a unit that's usually very, very good under LeVar Woods. They need to get those things ironed out before Big Ten play starts, because you can't have blown assignments on punt blocking against Big Ten schools. And you can't have missed field goals from inside 40 yards and missed extra points and giving up big returns. It just can't happen. So I always got to get that stuff cleaned up heading into Big Ten play. But overall, UMass win. They did the job. They did the job. It was really exactly what you were hoping for, really exactly what you needed to see from that Iowa offense, defense, special teams, really all getting it done, putting the work in. And on to Rutgers. We'll talk about Rutgers a little bit after this.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the Voice of College Football.
And welcome back to Iowa Primetime Live, Iowa at the Voice of College Football. Make sure you're following us everywhere. You can follow me on X at Zach_Heine. You can follow my written work at Hawkeyes Wire. And of course, make sure you're following the Voice of College Football at the VOCFB. Rutgers on Friday. Big Ten play is finally underway. And can I just say it's so great to be into conference play now. Like, non-conference games are usually just like the worst to have to talk about and preview and discuss, because usually outside of the Iowa State game, Iowa's not playing very good teams in the non-conference, and so it's good to be able to discuss actual conference opponents that are going to give Iowa a fun game, and Rutgers is going to do just exactly that. Rutgers this year 3-0 on the season. They haven't really played anyone yet, obviously. They have 3 wins. They beat Ohio 34-31, and then they beat Miami of Ohio 45-17, and then they beat Norfolk State 60-10 last week. But Rutgers is a team that has a lot of experienced players on that offense when you look at what they bring back. Their quarterback is where it all starts. Ethan Kaliakmanis, one of the best names in college football. The senior quarterback has been really good this year. He's thrown for 820 yards with 7 touchdowns, no picks in those 3 wins. He's completing on the season almost 73% of his passes, which is a huge improvement. He's been at right around he's been right around 54% through his first 3 years at Rutgers. So a 20% jump in completion percentage is incredible. 3-game sample size. Iowa is by far the best defense that he'll have faced all season long, but I think Kaliakmanis is really getting the job done so far for Greg Schiano's squad over there in Piscataway. He's been great. Rutgers has a couple of wide receiver weapons that will scare you for sure when you look at Ian Strong, who missed last week's game for Rutgers with an injury. But Ian Strong in the first 2 games of this season has 16 catches for 216 yards and 2 touchdowns. A 6'3" junior is going to give Iowa some trouble on the outside. But you can't sleep on KJ Duff as well. He's got 17 catches for 244 yards and 2 touchdowns for Rutgers this year. Just a sophomore there for Rutgers. And so with Duff and Strong, assuming I haven't heard anything on Strong yet, I assume he'll be back, but we'll see about that. Duff is 6'6", by the way, and doing that. It's going to be a big test out there for TJ Hall and Deshaun Lee and that Iowa secondary. Experienced quarterbacks put a lot of football in the Big Ten. A couple of really fun weapons there on the outside for him to throw to, 6'3" and 6'6". Also can't rule out DT Sheffield as well. 12 catches for 201 yards and 2 touchdowns. The senior wide receiver. More of a slot guy, 5'10", 175. But Rutgers really has some guys that they can get the ball to on the outside that can put some pressure on you as a defense. Running the ball, Antoine Raymond has been really good. The sophomore running back for Rutgers has 248 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns on about 5.8 yards per carry this season. Rutgers has got some guys. They've got some players on the offensive side of the ball who can make Iowa fans a little uneasy heading into Piscataway. So we'll see what Iowa's defense and what Phil Parker has in store for that offense. Because I don't know if Ethan Kaliakmanis is going to complete 73% of his passes for the entire season. Probably not. He's been a guy who's been right around 54% for all of his career at Rutgers. So I think Iowa can, try and whittle down that completion percentage and, try and lock up what, he's trying to do with those receivers. So Strong and Duff and Sheffield going to be tough for that Iowa defense. They're going to have their hands full. For the Iowa offense, though, Rutgers did lose a lot from their defense last year, but someone that did come back is their linebacker Dario Jabome. The senior has 7 tackles and a sack so far on the season. But last year at Rutgers, he had 105 total tackles, 3.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and a pass defense for that Scarlet Knights defense. He's really the guy that does it all for Rutgers on that side of the football. Dario Jabome is their signal caller. He's calling out where the defense needs to be. He's calling out reads and making audibles and changing plays. Like, he's really that guy for Rutgers on defense where, Iowa's got to make sure that someone's got a hat. Someone needs to have a hat on Jabome at all times. Number 8 for Rutgers. Need to keep an eye on him. But it's kind of hard to tell, how Rutgers defense has played, and like when they've played some not great teams. Like Norfolk State only had 220 yards on them, but if you go back to week 1 against Ohio, that was again that was really close, and Ohio had 440 yards of offense against that Rutgers defense. Parker Navarro threw for 239 yards and 3 touchdowns. And obviously, like, you assume the Rutgers defense has gotten better since that game, but if Ohio is able to go down and on the road and put up points and make offense look pretty easy against Rutgers, you would hope that Iowa would be able to do the same. It'd be really nice if they could. Ohio ran for 201 yards on 6.5 yards a carry in that game. It was their quarterback, Parker Navarro, 9 carries for 93 yards and a touchdown. We know Mark Gronowski can run the ball. We've seen it at South Dakota State. We've seen it at in a limited time at Iowa so far. Running quarterbacks seem to give that Rutgers defense a bit of trouble. So we'll see if Mark Gronowski can replicate that kind of performance that Parker Navarro had. And as James mentioned, that quarterback is really good. Yes, Parker Navarro is a very, very good quarterback over there at Ohio. But we'll see what Iowa and Mark Gronowski can do against that defense. I think they can put up some points. I really do think that. Rutgers, the weapons are great. The weapons are fantastic on offense, but the defense is lacking a lot of experience, especially Big Ten experience. There's going to be a lot of stars over there on Rutgers who this is their first big game because they've played a bunch of MAC and FCS teams so far this season. It's the first big game for a lot of these players on that Rutgers defense, and so we'll see how they handle it. I would really love to see Iowa's offense come out and be aggressive and put the onus on those DBs to make some plays and put a lot of pressure on them. I hope that Iowa is wanting to do that. I think they'll be able to run the ball, establishing that offensive line against Rutgers will be very important, and I have no issue. I don't think Iowa will have any issues with that. Can Iowa's passing game continue the upward trajectory against the Big Ten team? That'll be the big question that I'm looking for in this game. Because Rutgers is one of those teams that they're kind of feisty there in the Big Ten. Like, they're not a top 25 team. They're not a huge Big Ten contender, but they're a team that's going to give you a fight. They're going to give you a game, especially on a Friday night at home. They're going to be a lot of fans coming out to the stadium to tune in, just like that Maryland game a couple of years ago. I think Rutgers is going to give Iowa a game, 100%. I think Iowa's defense is going to have their hands full with some really good weapons over there, and until Iowa's offense can show that they can move the ball against an actual real defense, there's going to be questions about that. And so I think that Iowa, we're going to learn a lot about Iowa on Friday night. We're going to learn a lot about this team, where they stand, how I feel about them entering the rest of the Big Ten slate, with Indiana coming in the town next weekend. Can Iowa get a win against Rutgers? And kind of, if they can do that, if they can beat Rutgers, they'll kind of quiet some noise, some national noise. You'll be 3-1, 1-0 in the Big Ten heading into the Indiana game. You're at home. You start feeling good about that and about your chances. If you lose to Rutgers, though, then now you have some concerns, some real big concerns heading into that Indiana game, and there's a good chance you could be under 500 at your bye in October. And so really got to get a win here. This is one of the swing games for Iowa's season, where is this team going to win 8 to 9 games, or are they going to win 6 or 7 games? This is one of those games that will really be a decider in that, and should be a lot of fun to watch that. We're going to break it down more on Thursday night with Josh, right back here, Iowa Primetime Live at 6 p.m. Central Time. I'm going to cut it a bit early because we got some Monday Night Football on tonight. We've broken down the Kirk Ferentz wins record. We've broken down the UMass game. We talked a bit about Rutgers. We're going to be previewing more of them on Thursday with Josh returning. But thank you all for tuning in to Iowa Primetime Live. Make sure, of course, you're following all the social media accounts there. They're scrolling at the bottom of your screen. Thank you for watching Iowa Primetime Live, Iowa at the voice of college football. I will talk to you on Thursday night. But until then, go Hawks.